by Wits vaccinologist Professor Shabir Mahdi. He, of course, has led the South African vaccine trials on AstraZeneca. Good evening, Prof. So we have heard that the blood clotting fears are small. We also know that Thailand, that initially put their vaccine AstraZeneca rollout on hold, has now started it. But there is still quite a lot of concern from European countries. Just how concerned should we be about the blood clotting issue?
So I think it's reasonable for countries and governments to be concerned when you find any sort of signal arising. But at the same time, I think if we rush into this sort of decision-making, we risk leaving people unvaccinated. Now, what has occurred subsequently is the regulatory authority in the United Kingdom, as well as an analysis that was completed in Finland overnight, has basically shown that the rate of developing these thrombosis or this clotting of the blood in the large vessels in a 30 to 60-day period before an individual is vaccinated is no different compared to the 30-day period after a person has been vaccinated at a population level, which indicates that although there was a temporal association, there isn't actually an association, that the vaccine itself is not what is causing this thrombosis. Now, this sort of thrombosis of the large vessels is a common occurrence in different sort of populations. But importantly, I think some governments have had a lower threshold in terms of deciding when to stop vaccination and review the data, and other countries have had much more robust data systems available to them, where they've been able to do this evaluation much more quickly and have been comfortable in terms of continuing with the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Of course, you've been involved in the AstraZeneca trials here at Wits University, but also you're involved in the Novavax vaccine trial here in South Africa. And that is looking, it seems, really promising when it comes to dealing with the dominant variant here in South Africa. Tell us a little bit more about that. Is that, in your view, perhaps the most effective vaccine against the dominant variant? And is it going to be made available, the Novavax vaccine, here in South Africa?
Yes, so certainly the Novavax vaccine is cause for excitement, at least for the current generation of vaccines, in that what we've shown in South Africa is that people that received the vaccine were 50% less likely to develop mild and moderate infection. And in fact, when it came to severe disease, all of the cases occurred in a control arm, which means that the effectiveness or efficacy against severe disease was 100%, and that was due to the B.1.351 variant. So certainly it's probably the vaccine which shows greatest promise across the full spectrum of disease that occurs due to the B.1.351 variant. In terms of its availability, the Novavax vaccine is likely to start becoming available from May onwards, including for countries such as South Africa. South Africa would be able to probably receive the vaccine through the Serum Institute of India, which is one of 8 manufacturers that will be producing the Novavax vaccine. So it's really up to government to engage with the Serum Institute of India to get access to that vaccine.
And I wanted to ask your opinion on the rollout. We know that the J&J rollout is really more of a study, and we are expecting more vaccines only in the second quarter of this year. I'm just wondering, do you think that is this a failure of government planning? And do you think they should be changing tack? We know that some private companies like Sibanye-Stillwater wants to import vaccines for their own staff. Do you think that government should be changing tack and saying anyone who can get their hands on the vaccine, bring it into South Africa? Any business that's able to pull strings, bring it in, vaccinate your staff. Do you think the strategy is not on the right track?
Yes, I think all options need to be open in terms of accessing vaccine, but whether we would be able to gain access as individuals or small companies is extremely unlikely. If vaccine only becomes available from the latter part of the second quarter, we're going to be in trouble in that we anticipate that there might be a resurgence as early as May to June. So we're wanting people to be vaccinated before the third wave is upon us. So I think it's critical that we do whatever is possible to get vaccine into the country as quickly as possible. And if those sort of opportunities exist, then by all means we should be pursuing that as well.
Even the health minister is suggesting that we're not going to make any significant dent before the third wave. What is your view?
That's really unfortunate because the estimates, I mean, it's difficult to predict exactly how severe the third wave will be. It also depends on whether the virus mutates further and becomes resistant to the immunity that was induced by earlier variants. But it would be really unfortunate if we can't get at least the high-risk individuals in the country or a substantial proportion of them vaccinated before the next wave arises.
All right. Well, thank you very much for chatting to us this evening. So that's vaccinologist Professor Shabir Mahdi. He, of course, is the director of SA Medical Research Council's Respiratory and Meningeal Pathogens Research Unit, giving us some hope about the Novavax vaccine trial, which could be the most effective against the variant dominant here, but that might only be available in May. And he is saying that every option to get vaccines to this country, even through private companies, needs to be explored. Stay with us.